The Detroit Pistons moved to 2-5 after defeating the Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn 106-92. A win is a win, but man, boy was this game sloppy. We'll break down why it was so sloppy in this game in today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And also, just want to let you guys know that Locked On Pistons now has a daily newsletter where you will get, again, a daily newsletter with your daily Locked On Pistons podcast. Head over to LockedOnDaily.com and hit that subscribe. Type in your email and you'll get a Locked On Pistons newsletter sent to you every single day. Later on, I want to talk about how Jalen Duren had a nice bounce-back game against the Brooklyn Nets here. Then also I want to preview the Pistons game against the Lakers happening on Monday night in Detroit. But look, the Pistons now sit at 2-5. They beat the Brooklyn Nets, which, when you looked at their schedule, you saw and said, this is a game that they have to win. They had a very tough early stretch to the season. And when you get the Brooklyn Nets on your schedule after something like that, you have to be able to win that game. And they did do that. They won the game by 14. They pulled away a little bit in the fourth quarter. Got an 11-point lead for the first time. First double-digit lead of the game. So they were able to extend it in the fourth quarter and really put Brooklyn away. So a win is a win no matter what, okay? So the Pistons, I would say in the two games that I think a lot of people looked at and said, okay, you have to win this game, before the game was played. Like there was a few games, obviously, like Boston, they maybe could have closed it out. But games ahead of time that you were looking at, okay, you have to be able to win this game, I'd say they'd won both of those. They beat Brooklyn, and then they beat Philly without Joel Embiid and Paul George. They took care of business for those two games. Would have loved to get another win during that stretch. That would have been great for this team. But at the very least, you can say they won the two games that you expected them to win, right? But again, this game was extremely sloppy. And look, I've been a big defender of Cade. I believe big time in Cade. I still think Cade's had a really good start to the season. He's improved in a lot of areas. He's played really well scoring the basketball. I overall think that Cade has been pretty damn good this year so far. He's been much better defensively, I'd say. Still can get even better, but I think he's been better defensively. With all that said, I think everyone understands, or at least most people should understand, that overall Cade has looked pretty damn good. There is one area of his game that he just has not looked very good at all, and that's his turnovers. Now, I've said it over and over on the podcast that with a player like Cade, a high-usage player like Cade, you are going to deal with turnovers throughout his career. Throughout his career, you are going to deal with turnovers nonstop. It's just like with any high-usage basketball player. Look at the top 10 turnovers of the season. You're going to see the best players in the NBA that have the ball in their hands the most in the top 10 all the time. Look at the top 10 turnovers all the time. You're going to see a bunch of good players there. Like, that's just how it goes. When you have the ball in your hands as much as he does, when you are a high-usage offensive player, you are going to turn the ball over a lot. However, there needs to be there's a constant battle that should always be happening between trying to keep it below like 5 turnovers. Try to keep it between like the 3 to 4 turnover mark. Like high turnovers is fine. It's going to happen, but you can't let it get too crazy. And after the first 15 games last year, Cade was averaging around 2.93 turnovers a game, which is right where you want it to be. He really cleaned up his turnovers at the first 10 to 15 games last year. The rest of the year did a really good job keep taking care of the ball while not losing his playmaking, right? Through the first 7 games of the year, the amount of 5+, 6+ turnover games is unacceptable from Cade. This doesn't mean that he's had a terrible year. It doesn't mean I don't believe in Cade. Again, I think he's had a really good start to the year despite this, to be honest. But that's one area of the game that cannot continue to happen. This can't keep happening. He had 7 turnovers tonight against Brooklyn. He had 5 against Philly. He had 5 against Miami. He had 7 against Boston. He had 9 against Cleveland. That's going way too far. It's going way too far off the deep end. Again, like I said, for high usage players, you're always going to deal with that, trying to keep the turnovers down. But now Cade's trending over it way into the way too far off, going way to the extreme. You can't have 5+, 6+ turnovers all the time. 4 turnovers, okay, you can deal with it. 3 to 4, like you can deal with that. Every now and then having a 5 turnover a game, every now and then having a 6 turn, okay, that's gonna happen. For you to have 9, 7, 5, 5, and 7, 5 in the last 6 games, you've won above 5 turnovers. That has to be absolutely cleaned up. He said it himself. He knows it, but that absolutely has to be cleaned up. Because in this game against the Brooklyn Nets, the Detroit Pistons would have lost playing like this against any other NBA team, I feel like. Against any other NBA team, they lose this game. Cade had 7. Duren, I believe, had 4 turnovers in the first half. Ivy, I believe, had 3 turnovers in the first half, ended with 4. Like that, you cannot have 14 turnovers between your 3, I guess, high usage play. Like you can't have 14. You cannot have that many turnovers happening. And it wasn't just the turnovers from the Pistons. There were other things that was contributing to the sloppy play of the Pistons. They weren't hitting a lot of shots. I believe they shot, they ended up shooting, Ended up shooting 30% from deep. They have not hit enough shots, to be honest, to start the year. Outside of Cade and Ivy, and even those two really struggled hitting their outside shot. They shot 2 of 11 together in this game. They haven't hit enough of their outside shots. They were very sloppy in this game, and to be honest, in the first half, defensively, they were really out of sorts. I gave player of the game to Jalen Duren because in the second half, and we'll talk about him later, they played much better defensively, and he was a part of that. But in that first half, they looked absolutely horrible defensively, like absolutely non-existent defensively. Turning the ball over, not hitting shots, and not playing defense, recipe for disaster. So they pulled it off. They did. They pulled it off against the Nets here. You'll take that. At halftime, though, they were down, They were down 5 at halftime. They ended up winning by 14. So in the second half, yes, they turned it up. But in the first half, that was some of the worst basketball I'd seen on both ends. It wasn't like the Brooklyn Nets were lighting it on fire. But both these teams were contributing to some of the worst basketball of the year. It was a very, very ugly game in the first half. Extremely ugly game in the first half. Pistons ended up playing a lot better in the second half. But this is one of those games where, you hear former players talk about how, you'd like to have one of these games and win so you can go into the film room and be like, hey, we got the win, but there's a lot to clean up. Rather than we lost and we have a lot to clean up. This is what lost us the game. You'd rather have it happen in one of these games, but like I said, a win's a win. But this is not one of those games I think the Pistons are going into the locker room saying we played well. Like that was not a good performance by the Detroit Pistons. And honestly, I struggled to find who to give player of the game to because it was even out. It was a balanced attack from the Pistons in this game. And I don't feel like any real player played a good overall game. I thought each player had spurts where they played well, but this was just an ugly game from the Pistons. They have a lot to clean up. Their schedule coming up. We'll break down the preview for the Lakers coming up on the back end of this back-to-back. But their schedule coming up is against Houston. I should start with Charlotte, Hawks, then Houston, the Heat, Bucks, and Raptors. 5 of those games, I'm sure Pistons fans feel like they can win. If they want to be able to win 5 of those 6 games or win 4 of those 6 games in this easier part of their schedule, they can't play like this. They got to play much better. They got to play much more clean basketball and take care of the ball and actually hit open outside shots. They can't keep playing how they've been playing. So take the win, but a very sloppy win from the Detroit Pistons. But let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at @KookHill. Do you believe the Detroit Pistons played a sloppy game despite getting the win? How can they play better? Where do they need to get better at? Let me get your thoughts. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at KookHill. Coming up, though, I thought Jalen Duren was one of the positives in this game. After having a really rough first half, I thought he really turned it around the second half and showed some of that improvement defensively, which we'll break down when we come back. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA and get on your way to being your best self. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything, and in this crazy world, that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. It's completely okay to give yourself a pat on the back every now and then. Keep yourself uplifted throughout the day. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. If you want some help keeping yourself uplifted and really sorting through some of the problems that maybe you're going through in life, again, BetterHelp is the best place to go. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with the licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on, that's another great way to support the podcast. So, like I said earlier, this game was very much a tale of two halves. The first half, the Pistons looked absolutely horrible. And one of the players I thought looked really rough in the first half was Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren did not play, I thought, a good game at all in that first half for the Detroit Pistons. And because of it, you were seeing a lot of talk through the first half, despite the fact that the Lions are playing at the same time, which by the way, I do not like the fact that the Pistons have been playing on Sunday. I don't like it. But you saw some talk within the Pistons community during that first half, like, man, Jalen Duren is really just holding us back. Man, Jalen Duren is really causing us to lose. We need to play Isaiah Stewart. You saw that being said amongst Pistons fans in that first half. And I can't sit here and say that they were out of bounds for saying that stuff. Jalen Duren was not playing well defensively at all. He was turning the ball over a ton in the first half. He just wasn't having much of an impact on the game in the first half for the Detroit Pistons. However, in this second half, he completely turned it around. His overall stat line ended up being 13 points and 100% shooting, 17 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, and 1 steal. I will say, against a team like the Brooklyn Nets, I feel like you are going to get to see the improvement I believe Jalen Duren has made on defense, which is simply being more active around the rim. If there's one thing you want to say about Jalen Duren's defense that you feel like maybe he's improved on, maybe he is much better, it's simply him being more active around the rim. That is something I think has definitely changed from the first 7 games this year to last year. Now, Brooklyn doesn't have a stretch 5 that can really, spread Duren out and try to make him pay and make him guard on the perimeter, which I think is, I think everyone agrees, is Duren's biggest weakness so far defensively. I think everyone would agree with that. However, despite that, you still have to do your thing around. Like, he still has to be a better rim protector. It doesn't mean that when he has a good defensive game inside, we should just come around here and say, oh, well, they didn't have a stretch big to make him pay. You should still give him credit when he plays well interior. And I think he played good interior defense tonight. He had a really good chase down block in drop coverage against Cam Thomas in the fourth quarter. Cam Thomas looked like got around him, but Duren didn't give up on the play. He was able to get the block from behind. I thought that was a really impressive play from him. I also felt like that he had a lot more intensity, I'd say, on the defensive end in the second half of this game, especially on the boards. Did a really good job securing defensive rebounds and shutting down second chance opportunities for the Brooklyn Nets. And I thought one thing I think you're seeing from him for the Detroit Pistons to start this year, he's not getting a bunch of usage for the Detroit Pistons this year. He's at his career low usage rate through his 3-year NBA career. They're not using him a ton in the half court, which is something I thought we would see. But he is making his shots. He's being incredibly efficient shooting the ball when he gets his chances. 100% from the field tonight for the Detroit Pistons. In his last 5 games, this is what he's shooting from the floor. Shooting 100%, 100%, 83%, 100%. In the first 6 games of the year, he's shooting 87% from the field. So the Pistons, and it's not like he's averaging like 15 points a game or anything, but he's so far been a lower usage center and is finishing around the rim at an extremely high level. So he's having a good effect in that department. And I thought in the second half of this game versus the Brooklyn Nets, he looked a lot better defensively. The problem I think the Pistons are going to run into, and I think it's obviously been talked about already amongst the Pistons fan base, is, and by the way, Isaiah Stewart did foul out of this game, which resulted in a lot more minutes for Jalen Duren that I think maybe he would have gotten if Isaiah Stewart was able to play the whole game. He ended up this game with 33 minutes played in this game. He was also a +6, I believe. Yes, +6 for the Detroit Pistons in his 33 minutes played. I think this is all the Pistons can really ask out of Duren. This is what you want out of him. You want him to protect the rim. You want him to block shots. And in games when you go against a stretch big and they're making you pay, it needs to be a high-minute, Isaiah Stewart type of game. You need to see Isaiah Stewart on the floor a ton against those guys because then you can switch across the board. And if Duren doesn't get to play a lot that night, then so be it. Until Duren proves that he can guard stretch bigs and the stretch bigs are not going to absolutely destroy the Pistons like they have through 2 years of his career, then just let those nights be high minutes for Isaiah Stewart. But in games like tonight against the Brooklyn Nets, you want to see Duren set the tone defensively in the interior. You want to see Jalen Duren block shots. You want to see him engage on the defensive end. You want to see him ending defensive possessions with rebounds. And that's what he did tonight against a guy like a Nicholas Claxton. When he goes up against another center who is somewhat of the same kind of archetype, I don't want to say same archetype as him, basically like him that can't shoot is what I mean to say. Another big that can't really shoot, you want to see him win that matchup is basically what I'm saying. Against stretch bigs, it's going to be tough. Should be Isaiah Stewart night. But when you go against other bigs that can't shoot, you want Duren to win that matchup. And he won that matchup tonight against Nicholas Claxton. So I think you can give him some credit here. Again, especially for how he played in the second half. He played a lot more aggressive in the second half defensively, and you'll take that from him. So I thought a really good game from Jalen Duren in the second half. You want to see that from him. And if he can play like that consistently, I think, he can get better. Okay, he can get better. But if he can consistently get you 2 blocks a game when he's going against another interior center, you'll take that, and you'll live with that. Some other players I wanted to shout out before we move on. I thought Tobias Harris had a really good scoring game for the Detroit Pistons. He's still not shooting well from beyond the arc. I don't know what's going on with that. They are going to eventually need him to hit outside shots, and he's just not shooting well from beyond the arc. He shot 1 of 4 in this game from beyond the arc. What he's shooting on the season is 18% from deep. They are going to eventually need Tobias Harris to hit 35, 36, 37% from deep for them to really win games. But he got cooking in that third quarter, especially against mismatches, got them down the post, a lot of post fadeaways, a lot of, going over his right shoulder, fading away from the rim. He had a nice pull-up jumper in the post against Dorian Finney-Smith, which was a good and one opportunity for himself as well. So in that third quarter, he really started cooking, but eventually the Pistons will need him to start hitting outside shots. Tim Hardaway Jr. had a really cool play in the fourth quarter, attacking down the baseline and elevated for a dunk. That was a really cool play from him. He continues to hit his outside shots. I think he's been what you've wanted from him offensively. Defensively, he has his concerns. He's not very good. But offensively, another 3 of 6 night for him, 14 points. I think he's been exactly everything you've wanted from him offensively. Cade, despite the turnovers, I thought had a fine night. 19 points, 8 of 13 shooting. He didn't score at all in the fourth quarter or in the first quarter. He ended up scoring 19 in the final 3 quarters. The Nets were being extremely aggressive in this game and extremely physical. The refs weren't calling a lot of these fouls, and I thought Jaden Ivey and Cade really got the bad end of the whistle in this game. They were really getting pushed around and real physical with, and I think there was quite a few fouls that could have been called for both of them, and the refs just didn't want to. So I think that led to a lot of the turnover issues, and Cade just really couldn't. They were struggling to get the ball across half court, like Cade and Ivey. They were being pressured the entire night, which is good pressure from Brooklyn, give them credit. But there were a lot of times I felt like they were just bumping them off their line of drives. It was a weird game from the officials in this game. But despite the turnovers, I thought Cade had a nice, efficient night. Ivy, despite having an inefficient night from the floor, 4-15 from the floor, 1 of 7 from deep, I thought he did a fine job getting to the line and trying to provide that way. I thought he started off the game completely out of control, but he kind of, relaxed as the game went on. And then Malik Beasley off the bench, 18 points. Continues, to get a lot of threes up in his limited minutes. He got 29 minutes actually, but got 11 threes up. The Pistons need, I've said this before, they need his volume from from the 3-point arc for them to succeed. I think the Pistons veterans did their jobs tonight for sure. 18 from Malik Beasley, 18 from Tobias, 14 from Tim Hardaway Jr. When your veterans give you that, the Pistons should win a lot more ball games. When their veterans don't show up like they did against, Boston as much, like that's when you're going to run into times where the Pistons are just going to lose and it's going to be hard for them to pull off the win. But when the Pistons, young guys, have the veterans show up and help them, they should win a lot of games, and they won this one against Brooklyn. So let me know in the comment section down below who you were most impressed with tonight. Again, I thought this was a very uneven performance from the Pistons. I gave player of the game to Duren because I thought he was really good in the second half. But again, like I said, I don't think any player for the Pistons really played a good, full 48 minutes. So let me know in the comment section down below if you guys feel like there was a player who had a good 48 minutes of action, and if there should have been a different kudos player of the game. Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. Coming up, I want to give a quick preview for the Detroit Pistons' upcoming game on the back end of a back-to-back against the Los Angeles Lakers. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel @Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on, that's another great way to support the podcast. I want to let you guys know to subscribe to the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter as well. You can see the link down below with the text going across the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching or you listen to this on the podcast platforms, go to LockedOnDaily.com. Put your email in, you'll get a Locked On Pistons daily newsletter every single day with your Locked On Pistons daily podcast. And along with this, I want to let you guys know that we have a Locked On Pistons Insider program that should be starting by the end of this upcoming week. You can text the number below that you're seeing across the screen. If you're listening, again, on the podcast platforms, you can click in the description. I'll put the link down there as well. You can text the number 313-914-6528 to join the Insiders program. You'll get text from me throughout the day whenever any Piston rumors, any Piston news, any insider information I'm getting, anything I hear, any Pistons content, anything from me at all. You can talk with me about whatever. We have Q&As, we'll have trivia, a text directly to your phone from me. You can talk with me one-on-one. It's a cool program. I think you guys will really like it. So again, 313-914-6528. Text that to get started and join our Locked On Pistons Insiders program. The Detroit Pistons they have the second end of their back-to-back against the Los Angeles Lakers in Detroit, which is good for the Pistons, but in Detroit at 7:30 after this win against the Brooklyn Nets. Not a very long trip for the Pistons going from Brooklyn to Detroit, and I guess it's better that they have it in Detroit rather than going from Brooklyn, obviously, over to LA. This is going to be an incredibly hard game for the Detroit Pistons to pull off. I've been really impressed with the Lakers to start the year. I think J.J. Redick has been doing a really good job with the Lakers so far through 6 games. You guys know I really wanted J.J. Redick to be considered for the Pistons job. But I've been impressed with what he's done over in L.A. And L.A. obviously has 2 top, 15 players at the very least. And LeBron James at damn near 40 years old. And Anthony Davis, who I thought has been really good for the Detroit Pistons. Or not the Detroit Pistons. Anthony Davis, who's been really good for the Los Angeles Lakers to start the year. They've been using him a lot. He's been, I think, incredible for them. The Pistons along with the fact they don't have players on that level, they also just don't have the personnel to match up with those guys. Like, I think you probably feel comfortable with Isaiah Stewart guarding Anthony Davis. And, you're probably going to have to live with Duren guarding Anthony Davis at times. But I think you'll probably get a lot of minutes from Isaiah Stewart in this game. You'll live with Isaiah Stewart on Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis will probably win that matchup because he's a borderline superstar. Like, he's that, caliber of player. You're not going to expect Isaiah Stewart to clamp down on, completely hold him, whatever. But you'll live with that matchup, I guess, if you're the Pistons. LeBron, I have no clue. I have absolutely zero clue who the Pistons are going to be able to put on LeBron, especially because they've been going small with Tim Hardaway Jr. at the 3, Malik Beasley at the 3. Simone Fontecchio has really struggled to open up this season. Just hasn't had a good start to the year at all for the Pistons. So I don't know how many minutes he's going to get. And it's not like he's a good option versus LeBron either. I think LeBron's going to have a big game against the Lakers. I'm not trying to be a complete pessimist, but I'm really struggling to see how the Pistons could win this game. I guess one of the main things is LA is not going to get up a ton of threes. They're not a three-point shooting team. They like to get to the basket. Even though JJ's trying to get them to take more threes, I don't consider LA a great three-point shooting team. So I guess the Pistons could try to keep it low scoring or try to trade baskets with them. But the matchups are just tough across the board for the Detroit Pistons. I have no clue who's going to guard LeBron. I think they're going to get the Pistons in foul trouble. This is another one of those years where I saw that, like, the Lakers, I believe, I saw a stat. Lakers have like 140 free throws. Their opponents have a total combined like 100. So the Lakers obviously are getting more friendly calls. They're obviously getting, the favorable whistle compared to their opponents, which has been a trend over the last few years for the Lakers. So I fully expect that to probably be the case against the Pistons. I just don't. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. However, there's good news at the end of this. The good news is I do think the Lakers will beat the Pistons, especially on the back end of a back-to-back. It's just brutal scheduling. Like, you can't just get the Lakers, like, when they're on a back-to-back. It's the better team comes in more fresh. With the Pistons coming on the back-to-back, it's just like, what's going on? It's tough. But after the Lakers game, they do get Charlotte, which is a winnable game. They get Atlanta, which is a winnable game. Houston, which is a winnable game. Miami, which I think a lot of us would believe is a winnable game. They didn't get Milwaukee, but then they get the Raptors, winnable game. Wizards, winnable game. Bulls, winnable game. Hornets, winnable game. Magic, winnable game. Raptors, winnable game. Grizzlies, winnable game. The Pacers, they actually had a chance to beat them, so maybe a winnable game. So they have, like, over their next 9, 10, 11 games, there's only really one that's just like, oh, it's going to be hard to beat them, and that's Milwaukee. And if Milwaukee keeps trolling like they've been, I mean, maybe it's a trap game and they can pull off an upset against Milwaukee. I don't expect it. But overall point is, after they get past this Lakers game, their schedules should soften up for them. And I'm not saying they're going to go on like a 7-game win streak, but they make it out of this tough streak. I'm going to assume probably 2-6. You probably definitely would have liked to get one of those games they could have won earlier on and be sitting at like 3-5. You'd be feeling a lot better after like 8, 9, 10 games around that win marker. But you make it out of this tough stretch, 2-6, after I think they're probably going to lose the Lakers. And then you got a good stretch to try to get back to 500. You got a good stretch of games to try to, get closer to 500 and really feel better about yourself heading into December. I think November, this month, is a month that the Pistons have to dominate. They absolutely have to dominate the month of November. Again, I'm going to read you guys all their opponents for November. It starts off, obviously, the Nets. They won that game. They got the Lakers now. I think they're probably going to lose that game. But then they got the Hornets, Hawks, Rockets, Heat, Bucks, Raptors, Wizards, Bulls, Hornets again, Magic, Raptors again, Grizzlies, Pacers. Then they end off with the Sixers. This should be a really good month for the Pistons if they're a better team, if they believe they're actually a better team, and want to be, competing past December. If they want to be like that, they have to win this month. And the schedule gives them, I'd say this is a favorable schedule, about as favorable as you can get for the Detroit Pistons in the month of November. They can survive this month. They come out of this month feeling good. Going into December, I think we're looking at this season a little bit different. But it starts tonight, or when you guys listen to this, it should be tonight. But Monday night against the Lakers. If you can upset the Lakers, that would be big time. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough. The Pistons don't have a lot of matchups for LeBron and Anthony Davis. It's going to be a tough matchup. But all is not lost. Schedule's going to be getting easier for the Pistons real soon. But let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys expect the Pistons to do in the month of November? What do you guys think they're predicted? What are you guys predicting their record to be at the end of November? Look at their schedule. Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Subscribe to the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter. Subscribe to the Locked On Pistons Insider program at 313-914-6528. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Go Lions. It's at the end of this fourth quarter game. Looks like they're going to pull this off. So 7-1 for your Detroit Lions. Hopefully I didn't just jinx them by the time you guys listen to this. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.